And I am trying to be tech savvy here, and I see a lot of friends already. Hi, Alva. Hi, other folks who are on here. Good to see you all. So I know that tomorrow I'm also speaking with Judge Hernandez, so I want to save a lot of what we're going to talk about for tomorrow. And so today we'll just keep it simple. You know, I wanted to kind of shoot the breeze with you. I have about 8 hours of material in my head that let's try to squeeze it into an hour. And I wanted to be more conversational, and hopefully we can have a good interaction and conversation through today's topic. So yeah, Steve Kim. I work at a place called Project Kinship. We're in Orange County. Our office is in Santa Ana, and we work with folks who've been impacted by violence, incarceration, and gangs. I'll talk a little bit more about what we do and why we do and how we do the work that we do. But I'll always do a one-word check-in, and I always do a one-word check-in because the homeboy from San Diego County, Reggie, was doing a life sentence, and while he was sitting in his prison cell doing life sentence, he looked at the top of his bunk and he asked himself, "How the hell did I end up with the life sentence?" And what he realized is every time he got angry growing up, he got violent because he didn't have the words to articulate how he felt. I don't know about you all, but when I heard that from Reggie, I totally understood, because when I was growing up, I experienced a lot of early childhood trauma, and I didn't have the words to share how I felt. And so I remember even as a teenager, I would punch walls, and I'd punch with my right hand, hurt my right hand, and I'd get mad, punch with my left hand. And what do y'all think I did after both of my hands were all jacked up? Well, I used my head, of course. So I'd hit my head against the wall and trees, and I was just so frustrated. I didn't have the language to share how I felt. And Reggie, he's out of prison, and what he does in San Diego County is restorative practice work with kids who've been system impacted. And he does a lot of work in helping kids put language and to build muscle to articulate how they feel. And so he taught me this. Every time I do a training or I do a gathering, we always put some of the restorative practice principles into the training. And so in honor of Reggie, I always do a one-word check-in, whether it's with kindergartners or politicians. I always do it. And so there's a lot of people on here. And so in the chat, let's see if you all can put just a one-word check-in on how you're feeling. Don't say good or all right. Want to challenge yourself, and then I'll give you another question. After you share how you feel, let's answer this question. I think it'll be fun. The question is, if you had a theme song of when you walk out, to a big game or to life, or you're driving to work, what is your theme song? What would be your theme song in life, or as you prepare for that big game? All right, so let's go. Let's check the chat. Let's see what people put. A word on how you're feeling today, and also what's your theme song, and then we'll keep going. So. All right, so people are tired. All right, Rocky, I love it. Curious. All right. What else you guys got? Optimistic. We are the champions. I love it. All right. What else? How y'all feeling today? Open-minded. All right. Titanium. I love it. As you all are writing, I do this a lot too, because when you run groups or when you're working with, your groups, it gives the facilitator an opportunity to check in with how the person in the group is doing. So I know if, let's say, I know that if Alva says, "I'm tired," and I'm facilitating the group and she's falling asleep, I know it's probably not me, hopefully not. But I know she already came into the group tired. And so it's a great way to check in with folks as you're running circles. And some people might say caffeinated. So they may be like bouncing all over the place. And I'm like, is this person high? Or maybe they just came in caffeinated. And so, yeah. All right, California love, I love it. All right, anybody else? How y'all feeling today? All right. Love it, lovely day. Oh, underdog, I love Alicia Keys. All right. Well, I appreciate you all sharing how you feeling today in your theme song. I hope by the end of this, we all walk away feeling connected, feeling revived. Let me ask you a question, Commodores. I love it, and feel free to keep writing in. One question I have for you all: when you hear the word gang or gang member, when you hear the word gang or gang member, give me one word that pops up in your mind. Let's put it in the chat. The question is, when you hear the word gang or gang member, what's the word that pops up for you? And let's put it in the chat. So, violence, right? Yep. What else? Tattoos, yeah. Fear, criminal record, yeah. Awesome. What else we got? Bulldogs, dangerous, yeah. Need to belong, okay. What else? Lost. What else? Familial, yeah. Yeah, let's get a couple more. What comes up for you when you hear the word gang member? You could say the same word over again, totally up to you. Danger, real life, misunderstood, homeboy, right? What else? Drugs, jails, danger. What else comes to mind? Anything else? Coming from the hood, defending the hood, yeah. Territorial, hurt, yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Manipulation. So I have lots in prison, yeah. Fear, yeah. So basic need for family. Despair, yeah. What you guys? Pride, good. Looking for respect, yeah, I like it. Let's do this. Loss of identity, cool, keep those coming. I have a second question for us. Give me, no safety net yet. Give me one word. Give me one word to describe yourself. Right, let's do it. Give me a word now to describe yourself. Resilient, yeah, I love it. Worry word, I'm a worry word too. Yeah, yeah. Okay, what else? Mindful, survivor, that's right. What else? Don't be shy. This is time to brag about yourself. What else you got? Curious. All right. Optimist. Love it. Patient. Motivator. Hopeful. Hopeful. What else you guys got? Forgiving. Kind. Love it. Look at it. Strong. Organizer. Yeah, keep them coming. Positive. I'm gonna be your all friends. That's what I'm talking about. Compassionate. That's right. Restored and repurposed. That's beautiful. Good listener. All right. All right, cool. Giggle overthinker. It's cool how similar people find themselves together in community, as evidenced by all of you here. What an amazing list of quality traits. Perfectionist. Okay. All right. If you need your paper re-looked at, talk to Anne. Maybe she can look it over for you. All right. Let me ask you a question. Did you notice any differences between the first list and the second list? If so, I'll be curious to know just your thoughts, right? Feel free to, this is all new for me right now, so feel free to put your camera on, or if you don't put it on, it's fine, but you don't have to have it off. But on this portion, feel free to also verbally share, or you could write it in the chat. Yeah, first list. Yeah, Danielle, what's up?
I could start. Yeah, I think like the first list was trying to describe a certain type of person, whereas the second list was describing a more strengths-based approach of said person. So I think it was like clear that everything we were identifying in the first one were stereotypes. And then in the second one, it seemed like we were trying to articulate things in a positive way. Maybe
Yeah.
because we didn't know the person, I'm not sure, but it was like an automatic for me anyway.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. Danielle, by any chance, do you know a gang member?
Yeah, I do actually.
The gang member that you know, did they have traits that were shared on the second list?
Yeah, they did, of course.
Cool. All right, thank you. Alva,
Yeah.
what you got?
Hey, Steve, I think I was going to go right where you were going at the last part of that statement, where I think we are where we're at now at any time could have been a product of those things that our kids have gone through in the past.
Yeah.
You know, that we've all overcome a lot of things that a lot of these young men are either currently dealing with or are trying to overcome right now. So I think the only difference is time and someone who was there to guide them and to give them hope.
Thank you. Alva's the co-presenter for today, so just so you all know, thank you for joining us, Alva. Perfect timing to put your camera on. Hey, actually, would you mind sharing, what you do and maybe share like some of because I know you work with gang members. Were there things in the second list that you saw, like positive things that you saw from the kids that you work with, and how does that show up?
Yeah. Hi, Steve. So I actually am in a different role now with an OCDE, but I did spend probably about 5 years postgraduate school working in the juvenile institutions in Orange County. And prior to that, working with our kids in a wraparound program with Waymakers. But yes, I did see a lot of these things, these lists, like caring, the good listener, leaders. I saw so many leaders, right? And like that statement from the Spider-Man movie, with great power comes a lot of responsibility. So if we could just help them funnel some of their skills into like the good leadership qualities. A lot of them are very compassionate, strong, kind, forgiving, so forgiving, because despite everything that they've been through and everything that people have put them through, they're willing to kind of forgive when they get to that point when they're able to.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Very cool. Okay, cool. Let me ask you all this. Just maybe put yes on the chat bot if you know a gang member or anybody who's in a gang. Would you mind just writing yes? I want to see how many people actually know a gang member or somebody who's been in a gang. Okay. Yeah, quite a few. Multiple, yeah. Okay. All right. So I think I know the answer. It's the same one I asked Alva and Danielle is for the gang members that we know, a lot of them also have characteristics and traits that come up when we shared about ourselves. I didn't see anyone here when asked about to share something about yourself. I didn't see anybody put, manipulator. Do we manipulate? Does anyone here manipulate? Well, maybe. I try to manipulate my kids to listen to me and my wife and try to get out from doing my chores at the house. Does anyone here have you ever put fear in somebody? Have you ever felt despair? My goodness, does anybody here have any pride? Does anybody wish to look for respect? Has anyone here ever felt the loss of identity? Thinking about it. So the next question that comes up is, if we don't know a gang member, the question I have is, where does our general public's perception of gang members come from, right? If somebody doesn't know a gang member, where do they start creating their narrative of who or what a gang member is? What do you all think? Okay, Danielle says the media. Okay, anybody else? Does anyone want to support that? Any other places where we see that helps shape the narrative of a gang member? Movies? Yeah. Anybody else? Neighborhoods? Oh, okay, that's good. Music, media, movies, local talk. Yeah. Okay. Is the media always correct? Or personal experiences? Is the media always correct in the way it portrays a population? No? Oh, I'm surprised. I don't know what's going on with COVID. I hear so many different messages. I don't even know if I should get the shot. Please help me out. You know, I had COVID in December. Now I'm like, do I wait 3 months, 6 months? I mean, I don't know. I get so confused by the media. What's the danger? What's the danger if the media creates the narrative of a gang member? What's the danger in that? Mass hysteria? Oh, good. False understanding? Yeah, awesome. Probably not. You don't get a lot straight. Okay, perfect. The population gets demonized. And anytime a population gets demonized throughout history, we're able to do unthinkable things to that population. And sometimes it's subtle, but right in your face. The truth of it is, research and data will show that Black and Brown youth get longer sentences, are disproportionately convicted. And you know, there's a lot of things that research will and data will show. You know, the danger of that is whenever a population is demonized, we're able to do unthinkable things to that population. Later on, if we have time, we're talking a little about the school to prison pipeline. And again, this session, I'm just shooting the breeze with you, sharing a couple of things, having a discussion. And then tomorrow with Judge Hernandez, we hope to get into more of the nitty gritty stuff. And so today I'm just kind of going off the head here with a couple of bullet points, but I hope it's helpful and I hope we can engage in some discussion. You guys seen the movie Crash? Anybody seen the movie Crash? Crash is, nobody seen the movie Crash? Anybody? Okay. Oh, perfect. Yeah. It's probably old school now. It's considered old school, but I really like that movie. But there's a beautiful scene in that movie where I assume he's a gang member, but he's turned his life around and he's working as a locksmith, and he's working long hours, right? He goes to one place, a business, and the guy thinks he's ripping him off and he cusses at him and he holds his temper and he leaves. And the guy is just trying to live his life. And when you see him optics wise, you're like, this guy's probably a gang member or formerly incarcerated. And a lot of perceptions begin to mold, begin to come together. But there's one of my favorite scenes in that movie where this gang member goes home to the new community that he moved into, and he goes to his daughter's room. His daughter's probably in 3rd grade or something. And he goes into her room and he can't find her. And he kind of gets startled. And then he looks under the bed and she's hiding under the bed. And he goes, oh, did you hear those sounds? And she thought they were bullet sounds because the old neighborhood they lived in, you know, they were shooting, so he moved out. And he was like, oh, come out. He gently takes her out from under the bed, sits her on the bed, and they have a conversation. And she said she was scared. And then he goes, oh, I was supposed to give you something. And she's like, what is it, Dad? He goes, no, you're gonna think it's stupid. And she goes, no, what is it? She goes, you're not gonna believe me. And it's a really touching scene because he goes, no, it's this invisible cloak that's protected me all my life. And when you got older, I was supposed to give it to you. And the daughter's like, oh, well, can I touch it? And he goes, no, well, you can't, you know, it's right here. And he goes, you want me to put it on you? And she goes, yeah. And it's a really beautiful scene where he goes like this and he undoes the invisible cloak and he takes it off and he puts it around his daughter's neck and he ties it. And he goes, is it too tight? And she looks up and she goes, no, it's perfect. And I really like that scene because it humanizes him, right? That just because you're in a gang, just because you've been incarcerated, it's important to humanize the people that we work with, right? I believe there's many believers on this call. You know, it's about being able to recognize that, as many of you may have heard, all of us are more than the worst mistake of our past. A lot of our work at Project Kinship, I'll share with you, is we have a lot of programming, lots and lots of programming. So we started in 2014 and started with our co-founder, Mary Vu Marino. And we started doing this work here in Orange County through Project Kinship. And we knew that the first thing we had to do was change the narrative, to change the way people viewed formerly incarcerated folks. And so long story short, we did some trainings with USC and we trained 30 formerly incarcerated folks to become community intervention workers and certificated through USC. And at the end of the graduation, it was beautiful. people who had never been to college or never thought they can go to college received this USC certificate. Our hope was that if they had that certificate, they'd be able to be a little bit more marketable at different organizations because they had the hard skills of having that lived experience to contribute to intervention work. And I remember this guy, Jesse, a good friend, spent like 10 years in prison. And he goes, hey, I just got my bachelor's in USC. And I was like, I didn't have the heart to tell him, like, well, Jesse, it's actually, I'll try to get technical. It's not a bachelor's, it's a certificate. And I mean, it's stamped and you're part of the Trojan family, but it's not a bachelor's. It's actually, I was trying to explain to him in like broken language. And he just looks at me, he goes, I don't give a shit. He goes, all I know is when I put that on my wall and my son, Jesse Jr. sees the USC stamp, he goes, I know that he knows his dad went to college and I'm hoping that he'll also go to college. And so we started seeing these things happening. We started seeing kids, intervention workers who graduated from that program getting jobs. We have our school program. I can share, hopefully if we have time, how we utilize intervention workers who weren't able to be hired before, now in school districts working. And long story short, we began to try to change the narrative. It's also a lot of work. It's not easy training folks and getting people ready to do this work with lived experience. That's a whole different beast. But we started doing that. We went from 2 staff to 12 staff. And then 2 years ago, we jumped to 60 staff. And it's a lot of work for me doing the administrative piece, trying to be detail oriented. It's not my skill set, but nevertheless, here we are. And we were in schools with kids. We're doing work with adults in the jails, inside and out. As people get out of jail, we have a team right there waiting for them. We're in juvenile halls. I think I just saw Judge Motoki here. We're working with the courts recently to work with 16 and 24-year-olds getting out. And just lots of really, really cool stuff. And we have programming here on site. We have counseling, blah, blah, blah. So we have a lot of program that we've grown to. But I think this is what we've learned has made Project Kinship special. A couple of things. We are 60 or 70% formerly incarcerated on our staff, which means that literally that 60 or 70%, including myself, I wasn't a hardcore like jail or prison guy, but I definitely had a past where it created many barriers. We are 60% formerly incarcerated. So they're doing the work which they probably wouldn't have been hired before in another organization because of policies and stuff. I get it. We are 80% people of color. We're, I think, 70% women in executive management. And I think all that contributes to kind of our culture here and how we've grown. We try to, have people grow within the organization to move up into management positions. But not only that, we have a lot of programming, as I was mentioning, but this is what makes us special. And I apologize if you've heard the story before. It's kind of my go-to story that I really, really love. What happened is, as we grew, we got this big space we're in right now. We went from 2,000 square feet to 8,000 square feet. And I think in 4 or 5 more months, we'll be at 16,000 square feet, 2 sites. But the site that we have right now, as you walk in, there's a big wall there. And they asked me if I would write a quote. And, I was very, honored. And I said, yeah, I'll write a quote. But I got nervous because I realized when people walk in the door, they're going to see the quote on the wall. And so have you all ever had writer's cramp? Anybody ever have writer's cramp? Well, I got writer's cramp and I got nervous. And what happened is I didn't know what to write. So I put soft music on. I had a little bit of wine, I put some candles on, and I was trying to write a quote and I couldn't do it. But from Monday through Friday, after about 10 hours, I muffled up something like, in your darkest moment, never give up hope. There's a beacon of light that will lead you to a community of kinship, welcome home or something. So the day before it goes up, Ruben, who's one of the most gentlest souls here at Project Kinship, has tattoos all over his face, is a pretty big guy, has done juvenile life, has experienced almost every kind of risk factor you can think about during his early childhood. went to prison at the age of 16. At that time, they weren't separating kids. So was literally with 30, 40-year-olds at the age of 16, went from juvenile hall straight to prison. And he's out now. And so we asked Ruben, hey, what would you put on the wall? And I was thinking, like, I don't really care what Ruben's gonna put on the wall. I spent 10 hours on this quote. We're putting what I'm, And Ruben says, I wouldn't want my words up there because he's much more humble than me. But he goes, but if I was to write something in 10 seconds, literally 10 seconds, Ruben says, I would write, welcome to kinship, where judgment and pain are left at the door. You are home. In 10 seconds, Ruben comes up with this. And when you ask him, hey, how the heck did you come up with that? He just quietly says, ever since I got out of prison, when people look at me, looks like they bit into a sour lemon. But when it comes to Project Kinship, he goes, I feel like I'm not judged, and I feel a sense of community. I feel like I belong. When you walk into Project Kinship today, whose quote do you think is on the wall? Well, of course, the great Ruben's quote's on the wall. And I think that's what makes us special, that we have learned to serve and not save. Tomorrow, I think that's the title of our workshop, that in order to stay in this game a long time, we have to have self-care, but also we go into it not wanting to save people. We could leave that for God or the Coast Guards. I think for us, it's serving people and finding ourselves in that place of kinship, that as you serve folks who are carrying more than they can bear, that somehow as we witness their strength, that we find ourselves in place of being saved. Not a spiritual type of saving, but moments of grace, humility, and just awe of watching what our folks have to carry. And we get to walk with them. And I think that's what, for us, as we navigate this work that way, we're able to support each other on how we serve the folks that come into our organization. I think for us, when we think about the question on why kids join gangs, one of the thoughts is people think that kids join gangs because drugs, it's an outlet, it's girls. I mean, that does help, I will say, especially kids in their adolescence, when they see all of a sudden the girls are coming around and stuff. I mean, of course, whether you're a gang member or not, 14, 15, 16, that's going to be a draw. We get to be out all the time. People think that's why kids join gangs. And back in the, I think, 80s, there was this thing on, hey, these things are pulling our kids into gangs, the street life and all that. But Father Greg has taught us from Homeboy Industries that it's not really a pull, that those things are offered, but kids join gangs because there's always a push. There's never a pull. And that push always has to do with trauma. It always has to do with kids feeling marginalized, lack of resources. Even the Department of Justice will agree on the risk factors that they've created on their website on things that are risk factors of why kids join gangs. It has to do with all those things, lack of resource, all that stuff. And I know a question you may have right now. The question is, all right, Steve, well, brother and brother, one goes to Harvard, one goes to prison. Answer that question. That's a good question. And I shall try to answer it for you. I had a mentor, Charlotte Holdman, amazing woman. She actually got kicked out of the state of Florida. She was part of the ACLU and did a lot of great work in death penalty work. And she passed away a couple of years ago, but she was one of the pioneers on death penalty work and this thing called how to become a mitigation specialist. And that basically is just somebody who tries to figure out why did the person commit the crime that they did. So she worked on the Unabomber case, all these big cases, blah, blah, blah. So I asked her, I said, Charlotte, all these people are asking me that question. Two brothers, similar environment, one goes to Harvard, one goes to prison, answer the question. So I thought she was gonna come with something really technical and theoretical, but she, super sweet, she just goes like this, and she goes, that's a really good question. And she goes, I'm gonna answer it for you. So I'm like glued, just watching her. She goes, well, not everybody experienced things the same way. This is a very simple way of breaking it down that made sense to me. Because both of the brothers growing up in similar circumstances, experienced pain. They may have experienced it a little bit differently, but both of them had their hand out. And both of them in their pain had their hand out and they're reaching out for something. Maybe for one brother, the hand that they got a hold of was a mentor, and they were able to get into Avid or whatever program it is. And that hand took them and provide that support to go down the school way. Maybe the other brother, as they're reaching out in their pain, maybe the hand that they grabbed was a time when he was on the streets and the older homie grabbed their hand, fed them, clothed them, gave him protection from being bullied, and navigated him that way. And that made a lot of sense to me. And I'm a very simple guy. It made a lot of sense to me that a lot of our kiddos that we work with experience a lot of risk factors, and they're reaching out. And that's why it's so important. I love coming to things like this because I know that I'm with a larger family and community who have the heart to be that hand for kids who we won't stand on the sidelines and say, you know what, those things are happening in our community, that's okay. And I think that it's a real privilege for me to be in the space with you because I feel like we're from the same fabric. And I think that's important, the work that we all do and the work that you all do in doing this. So I think a couple things I want to share is there is no pull, there's always a push. And one of the underlying things many of our kids deal with is shame. There's a book called Violence. I talk about it all the time. I can't remember who wrote the book. It's one of my like 4 favorite books. There's a book called Violence, and it's a psychiatrist wrote it, and he studied his patients, and his patients were like cutting out their eyes, cutting out their tongue, and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. At the core of what he says was that for his clients, there was this underlying deep sense of shame. And as you know, shame is different than guilt. Guilt is, I did something bad, right? And then admit to it or I don't, and hopefully you can move on. But shame is at the core, at my core, I am bad. And I think that's why, aside from all the technical stuff of finding evidence-based curriculum, that's important, right? And getting data and all that. But I think at the core of our work, when you strip everything down, it's about dismantling shame and helping people remember their worth. And if you want something a little bit more scientific, we know that early childhood trauma literally rewires an individual's brain. When kids experience significant amounts of early childhood trauma, the way the brain wires itself to react in stressful situations happens James Gillen, thank you very much, happens at a very early age. And it's really hard to change that, especially as you continue to develop, and it's called during your formative years, are the most important times you're still growing. Many of you know the brain fully develops around 25 years old. Someone like me, I think it was in my 30s. It's okay. But it just takes a long time. So if the kids aren't able to have all the things that all of us on this call want to provide our kids and protect our kids from, and they're exposed to all these risk factors, a lot of times they're in their survival brain, and the brain literally wires itself to respond in a certain way. There's a guy, my brain is like having brain farts today, out of UCLA, Dan Siegel, talks about the brain. And there's something, he uses the hand model, you guys can Google it. And this is the front part of your brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, and your executive functioning happens here. And this is the part where executive functioning helps you make the right decisions. When you're in situations of stress, you flip your lid, right? And there's something right here called the amygdala. And when the amygdala lights up in your brain, it's your fight, flight, or freeze response. And for folks who haven't learned the tools to soothe their brain, oftentimes people are literally, for lack of words, running around with their lids flipped. And so a lot of our work, our kids never learn to soothe themselves to come back to a place where they could re-regulate themselves. And I think that's important because all these little things contribute to helping us understand symptoms of bad behavior. And so, for example, when we talk about being restorative, a lot of people think that being restorative means you're not keeping kids accountable. A lot of people think that being restorative means that kids getting free passes. It's actually being more understanding and knowing, the root causes of the behavior, and then trying to figure out how do we go back and teach. So how do you teach them to do self-regulate? Sometimes just through therapy. One is being able to identify it. A lot of it just happens through psychoeducation, but a lot of modeling. There are yeah, there you go. Thank you, Alva. I learned that from Dr. Kriegler, who is one of my mentors, and she just retired from death penalty work. Amazing person, and she was saying that even as an adult, we can literally rewire our brains, and how that happens is different experiences layered on top of each other that help the brain to rewire itself in different situations. And so I think it's different experiences that our kids go through, different types of alternatives that they get exposed to, like different groups, different classes, different opportunities to practice ways to self-regulate. It's teaching them, but also it's being able to also feel. What does it feel like when you're showing compassion, kindness, as you're teaching all these things, right? I think, and I understand from the one perspective of being able to pick yourself up by your bootstraps, but the shame of not having any boots is where to start for some of our kids. It's understanding that, well, let's figure that out. You've been asked to pick yourself up, but you're not wearing any shoes, and you've been able to navigate life that way. So I think those are some thoughts that come up for me. I think that mentorship, non-judgmental, yet realizing we're all human. Body Keeps the Score is an amazing book. Yeah, I think, for me, a couple of things, just understanding trauma, understanding, how it impacts brain development and development. All these things is important for us when we work with our kiddos. And I'll tell you how it worked out for us in real time. When Project Kinship first started, I shared with you that we did the training for 30 folks who've been formerly incarcerated. The problem was we couldn't find them jobs. It was really hard to find them jobs. This was in 2014. And what happened in a school district in Orange County, in 1 week, there was a shooting, a stabbing, a sexual assault, and I think 4 riots. And they were like, can you provide support? And we were like, yeah, we have some intervention workers we could bring in. They were like, well, can they pass a background check? I go, I'm not sure. What's your background check consist of? And I already know that even for myself, with one drug felony, I only had 1 felony back in the day. This is many years ago, in 1999. I couldn't get into working school districts until a good friend, Heidi Cisneros, helped me get in through the Department of Ed, and then I was all good. But I know that our guys had a lot more of a record. By just out of curiosity, does anyone know how many collateral consequences there are that a person could potentially face because they have a felony conviction? Anyone just want to throw a number out? Any guess? I learned this last year as we were advocating for some policy, but does anyone know potentially how many collateral consequences or barriers there are a person could face because they have a felony conviction? Too many? What do you think? Give me a number. What do y'all think? Somebody put a number in there. You guys think 10,000? What do you think? I'm curious to know. 50, 100? Okay, 100. Okay, anyone think higher? If you think higher, I'm curious to see your numbers in there. Those are pretty high. All right. There are over 46,000 collateral consequences to employment or reentry if somebody has a felony conviction. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there were over 46,000 collateral consequences. And to me, every day in our work, people feel it. I just didn't know there was a quantified number to it. And so there's over 46,000 bears. Just a FYI, I thought it's good public information. But anyways, going back to the school, so they asked us to bring somebody, shared with them who we could bring in. They said no. But this news hit the media, And so they needed some help. So they allowed us to come in, and it wasn't even a school building. It was in a parking lot next to where all the maintenance vans are. And there was like 4 portables. And basically it was a place where kids would get dropped off if they ditched, or if they had gotten kicked out of school, they would end up at this community day school. And I kid you not, I didn't get as nervous back then. I get more nervous these days. I think I'm getting older. But I got a little nervous driving up to school, because literally as you drive up, you see kids running around, and I see literally kids running around, jumping out of windows. I saw a kid tell teacher, "Fuck you," and running around. I'm like, this can't be real. It felt like it was a movie out of Dangerous Minds or Lean on Me. And anyways, we go there and it was just buck wild. And what happened is we brought in 2 restorative practice interventionists. And at the end of the school year, attendance went up, violence went down. We were able to identify these serious needs of kids, and try to provide resources. We didn't save the school. It was a collaborative effort that we had the privilege to bring our piece in, and we're always a support to anyone we work with, whether it's the courts, juvenile hall, probation, the school. We just bring in our piece, and I think doing that collaborative effort really helped the school. And it wasn't perfect, but that first year, a lot of great stuff happened. And from there, that one school birthed. Now we're in 17 schools in 3 different school districts. And I'm not saying that we're the end all, because that district also has now implemented restorative practices. Another nonprofit grew, and they do the work called Neutral Ground. They do some work in that district. They do some work in that district, and it grew. And it took a lot of leaders to be courageous enough to say, okay, we're going to try this restorative way of doing things, and we're not going to just kick them completely out of our district. And I'm happy to say that many of those kids have graduated. Many of them have entered the system, but I'm also happy to say that we still have the privilege to work with them as they're in the system. Because again, if we go back to thinking about what they've had to carry, it's a lot to change on a dime. And so I think, yeah, I think I'll stop there. I spoke a lot more than I wanted to. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts?
I just want to provide a little feedback, Steve, on the great work that Kinship does. Working at a school where there was Project Kinship staff at, we had a student in common that we were both working with, and he had nothing but positive things to say about the impact that Jimmy and DNA had on him while he was there. And it was really, I think it's a testament to the work that you do, to your vision for making this happen. I've known Steve since before he was Project Kinship, so it's been really beautiful to watch your own growth and how you invest your time and your heart into these kids. So thank you for that.
Some things, Alva. Yeah, I was old school too, and so it's like just being connected with good people, and that right back at you for sure. So. Well, I think there's some questions here. So restorative techniques, that's a good question. Restorative practice is not necessarily just a program. Restorative practice, in my opinion, is a framework, a theoretical framework on how to address harm. And the idea is when harm occurs, when you're punitive, oftentimes a person gets kicked out of community and they're no longer, they're shunned. Right? It's kind of like having a felony conviction. It's like once you have a felony conviction, you have that for life in many ways. There's no coming back to some circles. And I think that's one of the most horrific consequences to permanently shun somebody in some circles. So restorative practices is really about when a harm has occurred, how do you bring that person back into community? And how do we make things right? And so there's many different types of programs that have created curriculum to take that framework, and it looks different when it comes out in action. There's also something called conferencing, where literally there are questions that you follow when a harm has happened. So, for example, if I steal Sandy's purse, right? Let's say I steal her purse, and we go into conferencing. Sandy would agree to come into conferencing, and I would have to agree as well. We sit there, and there's questions that are asked. What happened at that time? What were you feeling at that time? And I have to sit and hear that how my actions impacted Sandy, and then then I get a chance to talk, and Sandy could hear what was going on with me, and you get to dialogue in a controlled way to some degree. And at the end, you also get to have the conversation. How do we make this right? Is it me spending 60 days in jails? Would that suffice? Or is it more of, do I don't know, Sandy might say, I want you to, write me a letter and wash my car. I don't know, whatever it is, right? Then if we agree to it, then we in our own community have figured out an alternative to repairing that harm and bringing it back into community and back into relationship. I know that it's difficult to do, but that's just one way of thinking things through on how restorative practices plays out from its theoretical framework. The Maori in New Zealand, I think, are big owners of this work, and they keep things in-house, that when a harm has happened, the community comes together and they have a conversation and they bring that person back. Sandy, were you gonna say something?
No, but I would love to go through some of your training. I think some of us have the heart for this, but we need some structure.
Yeah, there's different trainings that are available. I know IIRP, Institute for International something Restorative Practices, they're very cookie cutter, and they do a really good job on creating the curriculum, and it's a fine training. There's also a place like CCEJ, Center for Something Equity and Justice in Long Beach. They're a little bit more not as cookie cutter, but I don't know how to say it. They're more community based, so it's a lot more fluid in some ways, flexible. And then we do our training as well, and we're a combination of both. So yeah, there's definitely trainings out there, and I'm happy to share those trainings with you all as well. Or if you Google, you'll find them. And then rural communities, how would you address? I think it's finding out two things off the hip. I was working on a death penalty case in Modesto, and one of the things, one of my kind of my brain immediately went to, how do I start figuring out what was available for him? So if you're currently working in a rural community, I would start thinking about, what does the system provide? What's available? So that would be like probation, the school district, juvenile hall. What's the court process like for kids? Is there a special court set up for kids? I know that I don't want to embarrass the judge here if she's still here. A youth development court is a court that has been put together in Orange County. I know there's like Grace Court, there's like homeless court. Like, are there things like that available in your area? And then also, what community-based organizations exist that really work with the population that we're talking about? And then I would say, within all of those institutions, what does the staffing look like? What is the approach? Do they use things like restorative practices? Do they hire folks with lived experience? Is there a pipeline for folks to be able to contribute to this work who are from the community? And I would do that research first, and then find out what the gaps are, and then start picking areas on creating structure, or at least having conversations on, hey, these are some best practices from other places. These are best practices that we're doing, and let's see what's working. And I'd start chipping away at those areas. Like for us, we started with the schools. We got trained up, we did a lot of work, we did a lot of trial and error, and then we expanded into employment, and then now the adult jails, and then now more into the courts and juvenile halls. And so similar concepts, but I would first see what's available, and then either do in-house training or bring people in to train, and then start taking small bites out of it. And then what was a big part of your learning structure do you feel the kids most respond the most? All of you have great strategies. I know many of you have great strategies on what already works, but to keep it general for me, I think as I've learned from the great Raymond here, who's another person who's just amazing. I mean, he's one of the most respected gang members here in Orange County back in the day. He's been shot 3 times, almost dead, like heart was coming out literally. And after all that, he does 10 years in federal prison and comes out, and he's been out for a while now and just does amazing work. I mean, people, the other thing I would say is just because you have lived experience doesn't mean that you're gonna be able to do the work well. Doesn't mean that you're gonna be a great employee and all that stuff. I think all of us, and especially folks with lived experience, have to do the work on ourselves as well. Like all of us have done work on ourselves in different capacities. And he just got accepted to Cal State Fullerton, Project Rebound, and he's on his way to get his MSW. We'll see if it's from USC because they're a little expensive, but any other schools are just fine. So Raymond always says that for our kids, what's most important is helping them be seen and heard. And so I think if we're able to really utilize those things like active listening, to be empathetic, and to help the kid be seen and heard, the rest of the stuff will come into fruition. Another thing is it might not come into fruition on our timing, but again, that's where serving versus saving, becomes important. So, and then I mean, we do have structure. So depending, so when they get case managed or in the schools, there's different structures they have, that they're highly encouraged to follow. But I think when you're working with kids who've experienced so much trauma, it's not like you give free rein to do whatever you want, but I think the approach is really important, and to be able to build that rapport and relationship. We have right now Thursdays. I know we're in COVID, but we just opened up a manageable group of transitional age youth who are coming out of juvenile hall in the courts, and these are kiddos who don't usually go to programming, and it's not like we offer anything super special here. I mean, on Thursdays we offer some food, and then our staff is here and they just do a good job of working with the kiddos. But every week we have 20 kids who come, and these are kids who are homeless, just got out from being incarcerated, have probably 1,000 other things that they could be doing, but because of the relationship, I'm super proud of the consistency of the 20 kids who come every Thursday. And some take like 4 buses to get here, and it's really cool because I know that it's really hard to get even like 3 of those kids here, but it's a big testament to our staff and the way they've cared for the kids. So, all right, any last questions? Any other thoughts? It's really weird to
Earlier you said, hi. Earlier you had a great quote and I didn't write it down. I thought, oh, it's so simple. I'll remember that. And I can't remember it. It's something like it's not a program, it's a person, or we're not saving, we're serving. What was it? It was something great, but
yeah, I think it was 8 hours of sleep, I think. I'm just kidding. I think it's serving versus saving.
okay.
And it's we don't want to save people, we want to serve them.
Oh,
As we serve people, we'll find ourselves in spaces of being saved.
okay.
Yeah. We'll talk a lot more about that tomorrow if you're in with Judge Hernandez and myself, but it's really important, because I've been there wanting to save people, and it's natural. Why would we not want to save people who are experiencing all this stuff? But there's just so much going on that I do think that in situations we do save people, but I don't use it as a practice here because people go crazy with it. But I think serving is the way. I'll give you one last story. There's a kid that we work with, and I can't believe this is happening to him. He's over there in a gang area in Santa Ana, and I don't know if you have seen the billboards in Orange County of a mom who put a reward for finding the killer of her daughter. Her name is Victoria Barrios. She's paid for some signs all over Orange County. And this kid who did CPR on her before she passed away when she got shot comes from, just a large history of gang, just growing up and all of that. And he experienced that shooting where he did CPR on his friend and she dies. He gets shot. His dad's been shot. After Victoria died, that's her name, another friend got shot and killed in the same corner. And then last Friday, his cousin got killed on that same corner. And I think for someone like him, I want to save him. But I can't. I can't save him. I know that when I think about him and when he comes to our office and he's smiling and he's trying to protect us from not going over there because he says too dangerous to go over there, all we can do is serve him and remind him of his worth and give him opportunities to hopefully have an exit ramp off of the horrific circumstances he's growing up in. And he knows better than I do that if he stays gang involved, that he's going to end up in prison or dead. But I think when we do serve people, we remind them of their worth, and we walk with them, hoping that we can witness the transformation and the opportunities they're able to. We help open opportunities for them so that they can hopefully have an exit ramp off of these horrible circumstances that they have to experience before the age of 25. So, anyways. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. Good to see you. Thank you for letting me ramble. I always talk too much. And then tomorrow, if you're all around, we'll do it again at 10:30. So, yeah, thank you.